Hi poetry lovers, welcome to my channel Bella Poetry Presents. In the last few segments we talked about romantic poets. Most of them were born in England. We talked about famous poets like William Wordsworth, William Blake, John Keats, Robert Southey, and Coleridge, and a few others. Today we're going to leave England behind and we will go to Europe, and we will discuss today another romantic poet, but this time a poet that was born in Germany. His name is Friedrich Schiller. Now, Friedrich Schiller was a poet, a philosopher, and above all, a believer in human freedom. He was born in 1759 in Marburg, Germany. His father was a strict military officer, and young Friedrich grew up in the environment of very strict discipline and obedience. His mother, however, was a very gentle and nurturing woman, a strong emotional influence in his life. And like being between the father, who was so strict and so military type, such a military type of a person, and his mother, who was gentle and very nurturing, Friedrich was kind of split. He had to find this middle that will make him more complete with himself. And from the very beginning, though he was torn between two worlds, duty and control, imagination and freedom, and he had what I mentioned already, inner conflict, being both. This type of conflict inspired him to write and even shaped his writing. As a boy, he dreamed of becoming a pastor, but later on his plans had changed. At just 13 years old, Schiller was forced into a military academy by Duke Karl Eugen. The military academy was very harsh, disciplined, and very suffocating on a boy for a young man that had such a poetic, free soul. Life there was harsh, as we said already. Students had very little freedom, very strict schedules, and constant supervision. For Schiller, obviously, with his nature, freedom-seeking nature, this type of experience was very painful. He felt imprisoned, not just physically, but emotionally as well. But yet, this experience ignited in him something very powerful. His father wanted him to become a doctor. While studying medicine, Schiller secretly began writing plays, fiery, emotional works filled with rebellion against injustice. His first major play, called The Robbers, shocked audiences. It spoke about compassion, freedom, and it discussed corruption in the society and the struggle against tyranny. The authorities were not pleased. In fact, Schiller was punished and even forbidden to write. But true poets cannot be silenced. Schiller's personal life was filled with intense emotions as well, especially in the matters of the heart. Before his marriage, he experienced several deep but complicated romantic attachments. His letters reveal a man who loved passionately, but also struggled with insecurity and financial instability. Eventually, he married Charlotte von Langenfeld, a relationship that brought him stability and warmth, and also emotional grounding. Their marriage was not only loving, but it was intellectually rich. Charlotte supported his work and stood by him through illness and hardship. Together, they had 4 children. And yet, even in happiness, Schiller often felt a sense of longing. This longing, this reaching for something just beyond, lives in his poetry. And we'll hear that when we read a couple of his beautiful poems. So, one of the most meaningful relationships in Schiller's life was his deep friendship with another famous poet, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Together they shaped what we can now call German classical literature. They inspired each other, challenged each other, and created works that still live today. They exchanged ideas, critiqued each other's work, and pushed each other toward greatness. Their friendship was not just literary, it was deeply human. It gave Schiller a sense of belonging he had long been searching for. Schiller's life became a journey, both physical and emotional. He fled restriction, struggled with poverty, and battled illness. Yet through all of this, he continued to write. His works were not just stories, they were calls to awaken the human spirit. He believed deeply that a person must be free, not only politically, but spiritually. His poetry and plays explore love, dignity, beauty, and the eternal struggle between good and evil. Schiller was also a master dramatist. His plays, like William Tell and Mary Stuart, explore moral conflict, courage, and justice. In Miller Tell, we see the fight against the oppression that we saw in his earlier works. In Mary Stuart, we see the tragedy of power and fate. Schiller didn't write simple characters. He wrote human beings, full of contradiction, passion, and inner struggle. Schiller's life was not long. He often struggled with illness, yet his spirit remained strong. Schiller's health was fragile for much of his life. He suffered from chronic illness, including severe respiratory problems. There were times when he could barely work, when even breathing was difficult, and yet he continued to write. He was very much aware of his mortality and that he doesn't have a long time to live. And so this feeling of mortality gave him the urgency and depth. And unfortunately, he died at a young age of 45. Why do we still read Schiller? Because he reminds us that freedom is essential, that beauty elevates the soul, that humanity is capable of greatness. Friedrich Schiller believed in a better world, not as a dream, but as a possibility. And actually, his dream continues because the world is far from being perfect today. So we all continue to dream and hope for a better world. And we're going to read some excerpts of his poems because some of this poetry is very long, so I don't want it to be tedious upon you. So I will read just a few of his very beautiful poems. And so the first is called The Maiden Lament. My heart is heavy, love is gone, the world feels empty, cold, withdrawn. Where once his tender voice would be, now only silence speaks to me. Each breeze recalls his gentle sigh, each tear reflects the days gone by. O love, why fade like morning light, and leave my soul alone in night? So this was a poem that it's called The Maiden Lament. It's a maiden's voice. He's speaking through her words. And the second poem is called To Emma. Amid the storms that shake my soul, your love restores and makes me whole. In you I find a peaceful shore, a heart that I can trust once more. No fleeting joy, no passing flame, but love that time cannot reclaim. The Triumph of Love, the third poem, it's called The Triumph of Love. All doubts and fears before you fly, like clouds that fade from summer sky. For where your gentle presence stays, my heart is filled with golden days. No power on earth could break this thread. By love united, by love we're led. And the fourth poem, since all these poems are quite short, is called Nearness of the Beloved. I feel you near in every breeze, in whispering leaves and rustling trees. Your presence lingers soft yet true. In all I see, I only find you. Though far apart, you still remain, a quiet joy, a tender pain. And with this poem, we came to an end of the segments about a German poet, Friedrich Schiller. And as always, I show you the poetry. This time I tried to print it and my printer went dead, so that's the only thing that came out. Kind of looks very artistic, though it wasn't intended to be. So this is the portrait of Friedrich Schiller. I hope you enjoyed this segment, and in our next segment we will continue talking about the international romantic poets. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.